Okay, great. So, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for watching. We're here with another Lockdown Stories conversation today with Elizabeth Beroud from Beroud Consulting. Hi, Elizabeth. How's things?
Hi, Mike. Very good, thank you.
Great, great. And yeah, so it's not so sunny today, unfortunately. So I am in the office. All the other ones I've done so far have been on the patio. So I don't know. I was on a call with my mum this morning while I was doing my early morning exercise, and she said it was already raining down in Southampton. So we got that to look forward to. But yeah, so straight into the big question: how has lockdown been for you?
It's been really busy,
Okay,
actually. Quite
good
an
busy,
intense period. Sorry, Mike.
good
Say that
good
again.
busy or bad busy?
Yeah, good busy. But quite intense as well because of the uncertainty that we were all plunged into
Mm,
right at the very beginning of lockdown. So my husband and I are business partners, and we run a consultancy and coaching business. And in the first 2, 3 weeks of lockdown, we literally saw all the business that relied on physical travel fall away,
yeah.
either postponed or cancelled. So anything that was group training or team coaching or seminars was all removed from the diary.
How did that feel like? I mean, what was the initial reaction? It must have been sort of heart-wrenching, really, because you built up all
Yeah,
that work.
I must admit, it is incredible. We were sort of quite stunned, actually, that everything could change so quickly, and it was totally of out of our control.
Mm,
We've had the business now for over 3 years, and it's been building up steadily. And of course, from one day to the next, you're faced with a totally changed environment that looks nothing like anything that you've worked for or have anticipated.
yeah,
So yes, it was. I mean, we were quite stunned, actually. I think is a good
and
way.
like you say, what makes it really different is it is so totally out of your control and global, and I think that really hit me as well. And how did you react to that? Because different people.
Um,
I used to want to control everything, and clearly that's
yeah.
not possible. So I've made great steps.
Ironically, I think the fact that it was global made it easier
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
for us, and certainly for me, the fact that nothing I could do sort of individually would change the global situation. It wasn't possible. And also, I'm somebody who is sort of quite high energy, and I'm always very busy
yeah,
with work. And I thought, my instinct was really to say, well, actually, maybe this is, the somebody pressing the pause button that is going to be good for me. It's going to be good for our business, and it's going to be good for our planet.
yeah,
And that was, I think that was the other part of saying, okay, well, this has happened, so how do we make sense of it? So I think that was my initial way of trying to make sense of lockdown, was to say, well, maybe this is a period of pause, of quiet, that we all needed.
yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. You just said, I know that feeling of it. You sort of need someone else to press pause. It's quite
Yeah.
hard to do it yourself sometimes. I see where you're coming from with that, absolutely. And you mentioned the planet there as well. Did you see some of the satellite images of, the way that the pollution cleared and how quickly it cleared?
Yeah.
Is I mean, I haven't read up on that particularly, but I know it's perhaps something more that you've perhaps had a look at. Is this a real thing? Was it really that? I mean, obviously this isn't the environment fixed, but I was not aware that there could be such a rapid turnaround.
No, I don't think I was either, and it was amazing. I mean, just we're very lucky in the sense that we have a garden, and we noticed the birds almost, well, within a week of lockdown we had a lot more birds, for
Yeah.
example, singing in the garden. We've never enjoyed spring so much as this year, because we've literally just been in the one place watching it all happen day after day. The flowers coming into
Yeah.
bloom, etc. I know it sounds trivial to say that, but I think we've become a little bit disconnected
Yeah.
from all of that. Even though we enjoy our garden in usual times, that's not what I mean. We enjoy our local park, we enjoy our local woods, but even so, we are rushing around a lot more, and have had less time, I think, to appreciate just how lucky we are
To actually be there, sort of in the moment, as it
to
were.
have this wonderful nature around us. And
Yeah.
in terms of the environment, yeah, I think it's helped to maybe not reverse, but it's helped to show everyone what can be achieved.
Yeah. No, I'd like to think
If we press
that's
that
the
pause
case.
button.
So moving on to the whole return to work concept, then, do you think that will be a factor in people's decision making around the return to work? Environmental impact.
I think it will be. I think the environmental impact is something that everybody has to feel for themselves, and I think obviously we're hugely dependent, and it's not to take away the responsibility of our governments, in that aspect, and that's crucial. But if everybody feels that there is an imperative, a personal imperative as well,
Mm.
to act more in a more planet friendly way, then I think it will make a huge difference. And of course it means that we will put more pressure on the governments as well,
Yeah.
to to make better decisions. And I think the post lockdown period will give us a real opportunity, and give the government a real opportunity to to make better choices for our economy, in terms of the environment, but also in terms of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I'm thinking of the European fund, which is being put in place at the moment, which is going to be skewed towards helping businesses that have an environmental agenda. So
yeah,
that's a good example of how you can, how the governments can really help shape where we go next.
and there's a lot of different ways that individuals can have an effect. I mean, like you say, the biggest impact really has been staying at home. I mean, working from home is not new to you or I, but to a lot of people, it's really been quite an eye opener. And then there's cycling. I've never seen so many cyclists. I know you're a keen cyclist yourself, or at least certainly when it comes to the commute and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that there is a real opportunity for individuals to take some responsibility and make some changes. And when it comes to governmental decisions, I don't know if this is the right way to go about this, because my view around where we ended up with Brexit is sort of like, be careful how far you push democracy, right? Because if you let everyone decide on big matters or everything, then are there enough checks and measures for that to work? Now, I think there's certainly an opportunity for more digital involvement, and I know that's the way the government is going with YouGov, etc., and involving individuals more in the narrative, if not the decision making.
Yeah.
Is the environment an area where some decisions should be put out to everyone?
Yeah, I think certainly in terms of giving a voice to people, I think obviously the digital democracy is absolutely fantastic.
Mm.
And also, I think for, if we believe in local government and allowing local governments to listen to what their constituents are saying, I think it's great for them as well in terms of managing those discussions. I think people need to feel that, they have a voice,
Mm.
and, digital conversations are a great way for involving people. But I don't think it should absolve the government from, making those decisions and having, the really tough debates that we
Yeah.
need them to have. And
I, and
I was very struck by something that Jonathan Sumption said in his Wreath lectures last year, which was that, the Brexit referendum was very ill-suited to our parliamentary democracy, because our democracy is based on that confrontation
right.
and debate and discussion in Parliament. That is the way that we've made decisions, and the way that we're set up to make decisions. So, not surprisingly, in a referendum contest that was always going to be very close, there was
Yeah.
then no way to have a debate to get to the right conclusion.
Yeah, and I was gonna suggest as well that the main failing was that there just weren't enough facts to make the decision, and I think it appeared to me at least that that's why the decision was delegated. No one wanted to take the decision because there weren't enough facts, and it became just a popularity contest which was highly inappropriate. But there we go.
And it threw up. It's a pity because it threw up, a great many real issues.
Yeah.
That needed to be heard and needed to be addressed, and that, people like us based in London were probably not sufficiently aware of.
No, absolutely.
So, yeah.
And I certainly do feel more aware of those issues in relation to geographic context, having heard those voices. But and you talk about the local politics and that sort of infrastructure, and I probably don't want to go into it in too much detail, but I don't know if you noticed that one of the a student that a local student had written to their MP about the current situation in the States, and sort of asked for an opinion, and the response was frankly, well, very dismissive. I think is probably the kindest way I can put it, but I think that's probably a conversation for another day. But yeah, I mean, but if people don't have faith in that local infrastructure, then there is very much a disconnect to the next level. And even a friend of mine actually is a local councillor somewhere in Surrey. In fact, I think I'll try and get him on here because he was very involved in anti-fracking type debate, and even had some personal say threats, I would suggest, from corporations. And it's not as functional as we'd like to think, the democratic process, I think, in a lot of ways, but that is what it is, and but we need to have these conversations and see what we can do to change it. Absolutely right. So just thinking longer term then now, and so, well, but return to work for you, right? You're going to be mainly at home, or for the foreseeable future?
I mean, what I spent a lot of time doing early on in lockdown was sort of reinventing coaching interventions that were in teams where we would have all been gathered in one place and where we couldn't be. So reinventing that in a virtual platform, and that process is still going on. So I've now launched my first team coaching sessions, and it is quite different. Some things work really well, some things don't work as well, and I'm learning how to adjust it. And I think it's good that I started doing this straight away, because at least we're all learning together. So
Yeah.
you know, the people in the workshop, the participants, are forgiving as well, because they're
There's a bit of
learning
goodwill. Yeah, yeah.
the technology. So
What
you
platform are you
benefit
using?
from that.
What platform did you decide to go with?
So I've decided to go for with the Zoom platform.
Okay.
It has a function that I really love, and that is really essential for the type of workshops I run.
Mm-hmm.
Interactive, and that's the breakout room function.
Great.
So it enables people to have one-on-one conversations or small group conversations, and then we can bring everyone back together and have a whole group conversation. But it's really valuable from that point of view.
And that's a
And
bolt-on, isn't it?
it
I
works
think
reasonably well.
I saw that that's a paid bolt-on that you can add in. Is that right?
Which one? Sorry, Mark.
The breakout rooms, or is it part of the
So
core
I
functionality?
pay for I buy just the first level,
Right.
if you like. So it's not free. I
Yeah.
pay for the package, but it's the lowest level package, and that gives me
The
breakout
breakout
rooms.
rooms. Fantastic. And I know. So how quickly were you able to sort of get that in place and start testing it? I totally agree with the whole test and learn and use it.
So yeah, I've started testing with coaches fellow coaches in April.
Right. Great.
And was ready with the first workshop actually 10 days ago.
Yeah. How'd it go?
And I'm now delivered two. So
Okay.
it's, you know, it's still very early days, and still learning. But I think I went to a conference, a virtual conference, of course,
Yeah.
yesterday, and a woman was explaining how they transform their courses from the physical environment to the virtual environment. And she said, in order to do that, they had two options really. One was to assume that it was never going to be as good, but they had to make the best of this new virtual reality. And one was to think, the second option was to think, well, actually, there's no reason why it can't be as good, and maybe it could be even better.
Yeah, mindset.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's
well, there's
how I'm trying to look at these virtual workshops. I think there'll always be a place for a physical workshop if we can have them, but the virtual workshops will enable us to do maybe things that we couldn't do in a virtual space, and that will be very valuable. Maybe there'll be great add-ons, great preparation for physical workshops, great follow-ons to physical workshops, and hopefully they will work in their own right as well.
No, I think that's very much the attitude. I'm actually going through this myself. I deliver content for a master's program on innovation and entrepreneurship at Warwick University, and we've been asked to use Teams, which is fine. I don't use it for anything else, but I'm sure it should work fine. But we were sort of on a call starting to prep and think about how we're going to make it as interactive as possible, because that's why I was brought in the first place. And then towards the end of the call, someone mentioned that they'd done a survey with the cohort, and something like 22 out of 28 of them said they'd rather wait and do it face to face. But the only reason being is that they'd heard such good things from the previous cohorts as to how fun it was, how interactive it was. Yeah. But again, if we can get them to be open to the idea that we can still make it as good or better, then I think it will still go ahead, no doubt. Well, look,
I think so, and I think it's really important that you don't leave a vacuum.
Yeah.
If you need to gather people as part of your business, then it's really important that you find ways to reinvent that gathering in a virtual setting, and ask your clients. I ask for feedback every time I do something like this, obviously, and it really helps to you pick up tips, you and you can bit by bit adjust, and we will all become better at it as well.
Lifelong learners, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to have that mindset though, right? And
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't come easy to everyone, but if people can sort of embrace the chance to continuously improve, then that's great. In terms of, well, taking that thread into the longer term future of the economy, what do you think could be learnt at government, global, IMF, whatever level you think is appropriate from this whole experience?
Um, I think I think in many ways we will become more global uh, than we were. So I think really will be global citizens, even more so than we are now, and perhaps not because of physical travel, because of virtual travel. So the conference I was at yesterday, people were there from all over the world. Many more people attended than would otherwise have flown over to
Yeah,
America to attend that conference, including me. I wouldn't
yeah,
have gone.
yeah,
So I think, and there was a feeling very much of being part of a global community that was absolutely fantastic. And I think that will give us a different voice, and will place different expectations on our governments, but also on our world organizations, maybe the World Health Organization. Um, so I'm quite hopeful in that respect, that we will gain
mm,
from the exposure, even if it's virtual exposure, to colleagues and people in other countries, other cultures.
yeah. New communities, new markets. Did you feel like you were representing the UK at that conference? Was that?
Yeah, very much so. People always say, that's the nice thing. People always say, hi from Toronto,
Yeah,
hi from Delhi, hi from, and I was able to say hi from sunny London just as well. It wasn't today, because that wouldn't have applied. Um, so yeah, and people love that. They love saying where they're from,
yeah,
and flying the flag for their location, and it's almost as though you're planting that little pin,
yeah, yeah.
in that map um, of the conference. It's great.
And what about? I mean, clearly, part of this togetherness is that this has been a global phenomenon, and we've all now got this shared experience. It's funny because, you and I have worked in media, and I remember I quite often talk about that amazing Royal Mail campaign around, you know, thousands of TV channels, millions of websites, and one letterbox, right? But you don't get shared experience through this fragmented media landscape. But this thing has given everyone a shared experience on a global level that actually I don't think has ever happened before, right? Is there a way that we can leverage that in some form of economic sense? I mean, do you, or I mean, who knows how, but is that an opportunity, do you feel?
Yeah, I think there is definitely an opportunity there. I think what we need to bear in mind is, what translates well. I love spotting connections, and finding connections with other people, other cultures. I've got two cultures, myself, so French and British, and I've always thought of that as a source of richness and an opportunity to build a bridge between two cultures. And I love the fact that this shared experience has given us a bridge,
Yeah,
to walk in, or to travel more easily, perhaps virtually anyway,
yeah,
to other cultures, and understand, how they view things, how they interact with people, how their businesses work. And I came back, ironically, just before lockdown, I returned from a business trip to Mauritius,
Oh, wow.
where I was coaching the HR team of a bank there, and it was an absolutely amazing experience. It was a really good. It was a 2-day coaching seminar, and I really came back on a high, having felt that, you know, it had really made a difference to the team,
Mm.
and they were excited about taking the work forward. Um, and if I think now, well, that sort of opportunity might not be there physically, but
Mm.
but the need is still there to help, you know, teams to connect, to collaborate better. And that's what I'm talking about. You know, what I focus on: help people to understand themselves better, understand their strengths,
Mm.
help them to understand how they can play to their strengths, and help teams to understand what, you know, what strengths they've got that can help them collectively achieve their common goals.
Yeah.
So I'm quite excited about opportunities that I think will come from all over the world,
Excellent.
rather than just the UK or France.
Sure. And are you still in touch with the guys in Mauritius? Have you any sort of, I mean, I'd be really interested to speak to people from different locations about this experience, and might you know, if you think of anyone either in France or Mauritius that you think
Yeah.
might want to have this sort of conversation, that would be fantastic. Well, look, I really appreciate your time on this, Elizabeth, and it sounds like there's some real positives certainly for you and your business. And thank you all for watching. If you'd like to speak to me about your time in lockdown, share your story. I know that there's a lot of people that would love to hear it. So please feel free to add comments, ask questions, and let's keep the conversation going. So thanks again, Elizabeth. Take care now.
Thank you, Mike. Bye.